What's up, everybody? Happy Friday Face-Off here today. I am excited to bring on my hockey think tank teammate for the second time here. Every once or twice a month, we are going to bring Matt and potentially Steph on to the podcast, who do a ton of work with youth organizations all over North America, to talk about what we're seeing and how we can help provide some perspective on the youth hockey scene here. And so, Maddie, Friday Face-Off. Jeff, Friday Face-Off. You guys ready to rock and roll?
Ready.
Okay, here we go. So, topic today is how to support coaches. In the youth hockey ecosystem, the coaches are so incredibly important in so many different reasons. Number one, these are the mentors to your kids. Number two, a lot of times these are volunteers that are volunteering their time, giving back to whether it's their kid and their team or just to the town in general. And one of the things that we've seen is that, a lot of times coaches don't necessarily feel supported, and they're kind of thrown into the deep end without a life jacket, and they're expected to develop these kids on and off the ice. And so, Maddie, I'll just start it with you, man. Like, how can organizations better support youth hockey coaches? Let's just start there, just from a macro 10,000 foot kind of view.
Yeah. I think all coaches need some support, right? And you mentioned it, like every year youth sports gets more high pressure, more professionalized, more expensive. And that doesn't mean your coaches have to, but it means they're trying to do their job in a world that's becoming increasingly anxious, stressed out, suspicious, paranoid. Every year that gets harder, right? And I think, to your point, I think that means putting systems, policies, standards in place to protect your coaches. I think all coaches from U8, to pro hockey need clear organizational backing first and foremost. Permission to prioritize development over panic, chasing last week's problems, right? Having a long-term vision, providing mentorship, providing support, providing consistent communication from your leadership group, not just to your coaches, but sort of beyond your coaches to the player pool, to the parent pool, creating healthy boundaries with families, with policies and standards and some rules. I think having realistic expectations about outcomes, right? What is our mission as an organization? How are we going to measure this coach's success? Sharing those standards, from 8U to 18U, wherever your life cycle is as an organization, having those shared standards so you don't feel alone in the grand scheme of things, having a plan. And then I think protection and protection from the volatility of silly season and short-term interests and some of the backwards thinking that can occur in a youth organization. So, they're an important asset. They're a diminishing asset. This youth hockey thing doesn't happen without them. They're as important as building the ranks and having the players that show up. So that's where I start.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. We work with a lot of organizations, and like a huge problem that they have is coach retention, getting, especially when they're volunteer coaches, getting enough coaches into the coaching roster and then making it an experience for them where they want to continue to do it. So why do you think that so many organizations struggle with coach retention, and what can they do to help with that?
Well, as far as where they could help, I would go to sort of that list I just rattled it off, but they struggle, I think, universally, nationwide, Canada too. They tend to struggle for the same reasons. It's not dramatic stuff. It's little things like leadership sending mixed messages, like the constant pressure to win now, like parent noise overpowering your organizational values, like coaches feeling isolated, feeling like they're without support, like silly season, taking over their life for a few months of the year, the fear of roster churn, driving short-term decisions, right? Not having a developmental alignment from team to team, a plan across your organization. And then ultimately, I think, coaches walk into it and they want to provide a transformational experience. They want to do right by the game. They're 99% of the coaches get in for the right reasons, and they find out that transformational is really hard in a world that's this way right now. If they're left to do it alone, if they're left to be independent contractors, they're going to burn out pretty quick. So that's the slippery slope we all find ourselves on as youth organizations. But doing right by our coaches, protecting them and looking out for them and providing them the right tools, that's the roadmap to hopefully keep them coming back.
Yeah. One of the things we talk about a lot is like so many youth organizations are only bound by the fact that they wear the same jerseys, like every coach kind of does things their own way. And, coach A, B, C, D, E, and F are kind of left to their own to do their own thing. And there's not a lot of like camaraderie. There's not a lot of just like connectedness within the coaching roster. And then the greater organization. And, we've traveled and done a lot of things. And one of the things that I've found to be such a little thing that moves the needle so much is like coaching like once a month, like a coaching night where you get all your coaches together over some pizza and some beers and you just share drills. Maybe you bring in a guest speaker, something like that. And just not only number one, does it like show that you care about the coaches. Number two, it's a fun event for the coaches where they're going to have a good time and they're going to learn something. But I think the biggest thing is it just like, it's creating camaraderie. The best organizations that we work with and have been a part of, there's a real camaraderie within the coaches and they're out on the ice helping each other out. They're talking hockey in the coaches room. If you have a coaches room after practice, like there's just a sense of community and a sense of pride within it. And that I think goes a long way. What are your thoughts on that? Just like finding a time once a month, every other month, let's get all the coaches in a room. Maybe we hire a skills person to run practice that night for all the teams or something like that. And we just have a fun night of collaboration.
100%. Yeah.
I think it only makes sense too. Like, Maddie said, they're in, you don't want them feeling like independent contractors and they're on an island with how they're viewing, helping the kids the most. And like, just doing that alone is such a simple thing to get everybody talking. You start to share philosophies, you know who's doing what. You get less coaches chirping, oh, well, this coach didn't have you ready. He didn't teach you this last year. You're going to get more like, just cohesiveness, which is going to do all the things that help keep coaches happy and staying and wanting to come back, which as Maddie said is so important.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a tier 1 hockey director here in Chicago the other day, and he was telling me about like he's been coaching for a long time. He's a really good coach, and like he loves getting a new young coach to be his assistant coach every year. And then like hopefully that kid will show himself to be a really good coach, and then they got a job for the rest of their life if they want it within the organization, as a coach. So like that, Maddie, you mentioned the word mentorship, just finding a way to mentor some of these young coaches coming in, because a lot of young coaches come in and they might have even played at a higher level or whatever, but there's so much that goes to being a youth hockey coach outside of hockey. When you think about like managing parents, when you think about scheduling, when you think about practice planning, when you think about all the other hats that you kind of have to wear as a youth hockey coach. And so like the mentorship piece to that, like what both of you guys are talking about, like that matters. I think that matters a lot. I
agree. And that coach camaraderie building that you've done, in your travels on site with a lot of our partners, I immediately think of, some of the other areas where we've really provided practical help, fixing up the tryout process, looking at your tryout process to remove the coach politics. Can you create a system that deflects heat from your coaches and keep them out of the drama, right? Like that speaks, I think, a lot to your ability to retain them. So tryouts is a big one. Organizational communication, stuff that helps parents understand the big picture mission and vision of your organization, where they are in the big picture landscape, how success should probably be measured at your age, how your coaches are trained and evaluated at that age group. That time of dialogue and mentorship, I think diffuses a lot of parent issues before they ever start. So organizational communication. And then the last one that jumps to mind is, again, I referred to it earlier, but a player development plan, a plan that spans your organization. You've got your mission. Now start to look at what that looks like at every age group, right? What's age appropriate process, age appropriate goals, and then align some resources to that plan. If you have that, now it's easier to build coaching curriculum. Now it's easier to build parent mentorship curriculum. All the other tools start to fall into place that I think really improves your coaches' lives. So the player development plan is another big one for us. But the first one to start with, you're 100% right, is what's your coaching culture look like? Your coach camaraderie culture look like? Are they willing to work together and share ideas? And if you can start there, I think you can build a lot of positive things.
Love that. All right. Awesome Friday face-off. If you're looking for any help or you need some perspective on helping your youth hockey organization run a little bit more efficiently and work a little bit better, reach out to us, whether it's Matt or myself, and we can show you kind of what we do. But awesome stuff, Matty.
Thanks, boss.